What is the origin of languages? Where there is darkness, mythology has always tried to shine a light. When science can't explain something, human beings look to myths. With languages, it's no different. Why do the words we use for things change across borders? Linguists trying to understand this phenomenon often find themselves hitting a wall, because language is so vast and complex. Legends, however, hold some fascinating insights regarding the barrier of language. From the Bible to Chinese legends, via the Aztec Empire in Australia, come with us around the world in 80, fewer than 80, myths about the origin of languages. The confusion of languages in the Tower of Babel is the key moment in history, where humanity passes from unity to fragmentation. According to the biblical account, people worked together with a common goal, to build a tower that would reach to heaven. Their cooperation, based on the use of a single language, allowed them to move forward unhindered. But suddenly, everything changes. The language that used to unite them is divided into multiple languages. What used to be clear instructions become incomprehensible sounds. The architect's orders do not reach the workers correctly, calculations become disordered, and confusion generates chaos. Imagine the bewilderment, frustration and desperation of people who just a moment ago could communicate and now cannot understand each other even with their own colleagues. This event marks the end of construction. People are grouped according to the language they can understand, and eventually dispersed to different regions of the world. In symbolic terms, the confusion of languages is seen as the origin of humanity's linguistic and cultural diversity. Did our languages come from the Tower of Babel? Jehovah scattered them from there over all the surface of the earth, and they gradually left off building the city. That is why its name was called Babbel, because their Jehovah had confused the language of all the earth. Genesis 11:8 and 9. Did that event recorded in the Bible really happen? Did people start speaking different languages all at once, as described? Some scoff at the Bible's account of how human languages began and spread. The Tower of Babel myth is definitely one of the most absurd stories ever told. Even a Jewish rabbi called it a naive attempt to explain the origin of nations. Why do people reject the Babbel account? Simply put, it contradicts certain theories regarding the origin of language. For example, some scholars suggest that language groups did not appear suddenly, but evolved gradually from one mother tongue. Others believe that several original languages developed independently, advancing from simple grunts to complex speech. The evolution of language, we do not yet have fully convincing answers. The following is supplementary information: legends that echo the Bible's account. Once upon a time all the people lived in one large village and spoke one tongue. According to a story told by a hill tribe in Myanmar, while building a great tower, the builders gradually acquired different manners, customs and ways of speech, eventually being scattered all over the land. Similar legends are found among indigenous peoples of Africa, East Asia, Mexico, and elsewhere. If the Babbel account had been an invention by Moses, the Hebrew writer of Genesis, would it have cropped up in the legends of such far-flung national and language groups? That is very unlikely. Thus, the existence of such diverse legends and tales testifies to the credibility of the Babbel account in the Bible. What have archaeologists and researchers uncovered regarding the origin and development of human languages? Do their discoveries confirm any of the proposed theories? Or do the findings support the Babbel account? Where and when did it happen? The Bible states that the confusion of language and dispersion of the people took place in the land of Shinar, later called Babylonia. When did that happen? The Earth's population, footnote, was divided, says the Bible, in the days of Peleg, who was born about 250 years before Abraham. So the events of Babbel evidently took place some 4,200 years ago. Some scholars theorize that modern languages stem from one original language, the so-called mother tongue, that they thought humans spoke nearly 100,000 years ago. Theories about language usually presuppose that humans evolved from ape-like creatures. Others claim that today's languages are related to several root languages spoken at least 6,000 years ago. But how do linguists reconstruct the development of extinct languages? Unlike biologists, linguists do not have fossils to guide them through the past. What are these fossils, and what do they reveal regarding the origin of human languages? The earliest records of written language, the only linguistic fossils man can hope to have, go back no more than about 4,000 or 5,000 years. Where did archaeologists discover these linguistic fossils, or records of written language? In Lower Mesopotamia, the site of ancient Shinar, the archaeologists have unearthed several pyramid-like step temple towers in the vicinity of Shinar. The Bible says that the tower builders at Babbel laid bricks not stone and used bitumen as mortar. In Mesopotamia stone was rare or even entirely absent, says the New Encyclopedia Britannica. While bitumen was plentiful, the available physical evidence is in agreement with the facts stated in the Bible. Different languages, different thinking. The Bible account says that at Babbel God acted to confuse their language that they may not listen to understand one another's language. Genesis 11:7. As a result, the workers left off building the city of Babbel, and were scattered over all the surface of the earth. The Bible does not say that all modern languages can be traced to a single mother tongue. Rather, it describes the sudden appearance of several apparently fully developed new languages, each capable of expressing the range of human feeling and thought, and each different and distinct from the others. What about the language groups of the world today? Are they fundamentally similar or different? Cognitive scientist Lera Boroditsky wrote, as linguists probed deeper into the world's languages, 7,000 or so, only a fraction of them analyzed, innumerable unpredictable differences emerged. Yes, although tongues and dialects of one language family such as Cantonese and Hakka in southern China may be similar to one another, they are fundamentally different from those of another language family, say West Catalan or Valencian in Spain. Languages shape the way people think about and describe the world around them: color, quantity, location, direction. For example, in one language a person says, "There is a bug on your right hand." But in another language, one would say, "There is a bug on your southwest hand." Such differences would be confusing to say the least. No wonder the builders at Babbel found it impossible to continue their project. Grunts or complex speech. What was mankind's original language like? The Bible reports that the first man, Adam, was able to coin new words when he named all the animals and flying creatures. Adam also composed poetry to express his feelings for his wife. And she clearly described what God had commanded and the consequences of disobeying him. The first language, then, enabled humans to communicate fully and to express themselves creatively. The confusion of languages at Babbel hindered mankind's ability to combine their intellectual and physical powers. Yet, their new languages, like the first language, were complex. Within a few centuries, men built bustling cities, assembled powerful armies, and engaged in international trade. Could they have made such progress without the use of an extensive vocabulary and grammar? According to the Bible, the original human tongue and the tongues introduced at Babbel were not primitive grunts and growls, but complex languages. Modern research supports this conclusion. The Cambridge Encyclopedia of Language states, every culture which has been investigated, no matter how primitive it may be in cultural terms, turns out to have a fully developed language, with a complexity comparable to those of the so-called civilized nations. Similarly, in his book The Language Instinct, Harvard College professor Steven Pinker states, there is no such thing as a Stone Age language. The future of language. After reviewing the age and location of linguistic fossils, the fundamental differences between language groups, and the complexity of ancient languages, what reasonable conclusion could we draw? Many conclude that the Bible's account of what took place at Babbel is a fully credible explanation. The Bible tells us that Jehovah God confused the people's language at Babbel because they rebelled against him. However, he promised that he would give to peoples the change to a pure language, in order for them all to call upon the name of Jehovah, in order to serve him shoulder to shoulder. This pure language, the truth from God's word, draws together a people from around the world today. It seems logical that in the future God would unite mankind further by giving them one common language, undoing the confusion at Babbel. Linguists have tried for many years to discover the relationships between the sounds of different languages in order to identify a common evolutionary origin for all humanity. It can be said without fear of being wrong that they have not succeeded. Linguists assume that it would take tens of thousands of years for modern languages to form, but the story of Babbel indicates that modern languages began in their basic form only a few thousand years ago. We are told in Genesis chapter 11 that before the events of Babbel, mankind spoke only one language. Modern languages began to develop only a few thousand years ago, not hundreds of thousands. Traditional views of evolution claim that the rate of change in organisms is extremely slow. Nowadays, evolutionary change is obviously imperceptible. You can't see it. More recent theories, such as punctuated equilibrium, suggest evolution through rapid changes in order to justify the absence of both missing links in any observed evolution. It is unfortunate for evolutionary linguists that they cannot make use of slow mutations, or even rapid change in small populations, in order to underpin the evolutionary theory of language development. Rapid change runs counter to the popular theory of language, according to which small societies change their form of language more slowly than large ones. In other words, linguists who believe in evolution have become bogged down as to how modern languages originated. The differences between American English and British English today, or between South American Spanish and Castilian Spanish, or between Dutch and Afrikaans indicate that in the space of a few hundred years there has been enough change in the isolated languages that they can be classified as different languages, even though they come from the same background. On a broader scale, English and German seem to come from a common Proto-Germanic ancestor. Common words like water and Wasser indicate that this is so. But this common ancestor had to have existed at least 3,000 years ago to justify the emergence of such differentiated ways of using words, e.g., ich spreche nicht Deutsch versus I don't speak German. If all languages have evolved from a common ancestor in the same way that English and German have, it would take an incredibly long time to achieve this wide variety of languages. Some have suggested a period of at least 300,000 years for all of the world's languages to be derived from a common ancestor. One still, the view that all languages could have developed from a primitive early language presents several difficulties. There are natural barriers in language that would prevent such a thing from happening. Native English people have fun when they hear English spoken by a person with a different mother tongue. The reason is not that the non-native English speaker cannot pronounce the English words correctly, but that he pronounces them with his native speech rhythm that is totally different from the rhythm of English speech. For this very reason, people of a different native language think that English speak in a strange way. So a language is more than words and words used in order, they are also words that can be used in a particular type of rhythm that is communicated to users of the same language. To change a language thoroughly, you need to change all of its attributes, i.e., words, word patterns, and speech rhythms. Changing speech rhythms is one of the most elusive attributes to achieve. Children seem to learn this while they are still in the womb.